everyone. I'm Lindsey Turner. I'm here with my co-host Amanda Raquel Martinez, and this is the Bad Pastor podcast where we talk about astrology, faith, and building something new from the broken pieces of life. Hey, Mandee, how are you?
Good, Lindsey. How you doing?
Oh my God, it's been a hell of a week, let me say. I did not have what's happened in the last week on my bingo card for 2024. But yeah, I'm hanging in there. How are you?
Oh my God. Honestly, same. I'm really just trying to make it to next week. And I found out today that I have to fly next week. And I'm like, it's a lot. There's just too many things going on. And spooky season is spookier than anticipated. So here we are.
Ooh, where do you have to fly to?
I'm going to New York. I'm just, speaking of broken pieces, I'm just trying to pick up the pieces of my life. Going to New York, staying with family. That's always a thing. And then going to Providence to get the rest of my shit from there because I haven't had it. I feel like there's just been so many parts of me in different places because I've been transient for the last 2 years. And so I'm really just trying to recollect all the pieces of my life together so that I can finally be in one place again and hoping that'll regulate my nervous system. What's been going on for you?
Oh my gosh. Well, I debated whether I was going to talk about this, but I think I want to, and I can just delete it if I decide that I don't want it on the recording. But yeah, it's been a really crazy month. After Mars ingressed Cancer, which is where my son is, I started getting this like really painful breast pain. And I was like, I have never experienced anything like this in my life. It was like someone cut off my boobs and reattached them with barbed wire. Like it was so painful. I had no idea what was going on. And then I was like getting these like really hangry attack spells. And I was talking to one of my clients who asked me, "Are you pregnant?" And I was like, "Oh my God." And so, yeah, I was like, nah, like, I don't think so. And then I went to the dentist to have a filling done and they took my blood pressure and they were like, your blood pressure is like very low. And then, my dentist came in because I had had a cleaning the week before and she was like, your gums were like really inflamed last week, like to the point that the orthodontist made a note about it. And I'm like starting to, like the thinking woman, me and with like all the math numbers, like what the fuck? And I looked at my dentist and I was like, I think there's a chance I could be pregnant. And she was like, well, then we shouldn't do this procedure until you know, because I don't want to give you anesthesia. And I was like, okay. So I take a pregnancy test, it's negative. I'm like, okay. I mean, but it was still, I was only like, maybe 2.5 weeks into my cycle. And so it was really early to tell. But then the symptoms just kept like piling on and piling on. I was having symptoms I didn't even know that were like associated with pregnancy. What I found out was that when you become pregnant, your body produces, apparently, my cousin told me this, so fact check it, 50%, and she's a Leo, 50% with Capricorn rising, actually. I think that she was right because she's had 2 babies. Your body makes 50% more blood. And so like half of the symptoms are just because of that. Like, so like blood pressure stuff. And then like, I was so thirsty and I'm a huge water drinker. I drink so much water and I like could not drink enough water. And so it was really wild. And I was like, well, maybe I'm just having a weird cycle and stuff, but like the breast pain would just not go away. And I was like, this is a very weird, because Mars, right, like represents pain and like stabbing pain and feeling like things have been like severed. And Cancer rules the breast. And I was like, this is a very strange manifestation for this transit. Yeah. And I would like, okay, I'm just gonna wait for my period. And my period has been to the minute, like clockwork exact regular for years. And nothing came for 2 days. And I was like, oh my God. But I was still not testing positive on pregnancy tests. And I was like, okay. I was like, I had this intuition that there was like something had happened, like that there was some sort of fertilization or implantation or so. I don't even know. It's so complicated, but like what can happen and what can go wrong. And I decided to like take this week. I asked my clients who've been like so sweet to take the week off, just so I could kind of figure out like what was going on. And I was going to go just get a blood test. Um, but then I started bleeding yesterday, and I was like, okay, I guess I'm not the leg. Something definitely happened. And so I consulted my friend Jessica Irene, who's Dendra Lafaya, on socials, and that's her website. And she's an amazing astrologer. And I had her test a horary chart. Do you know what a horary chart is?
Yeah, what is that?
Okay, so I'm going to tell you. So a horary chart is basically it's a chart of the moment. And when a question is asked, the astrologer casts the chart for that moment and then interprets the chart and comes up with the answer. And a lot of times horary was used to find like missing things, people or animals, and is still often used to do that. But you can also ask it questions. So or you can ask the astrologer questions and have the chart answer. And it's an incredibly complex practice with its own set of rules, and it's fascinating. And I know a little bit about it, but like people who are good at it are like really, really talented. And so I asked, like, was I pregnant? And, did something happen? And the judgment was like, yes, you were. Like, you definitely were pregnant, but it didn't take. And I was like, I was certain that happened. And then it confirmed my intuition. And then a friend of mine who is like an intuitive, like a psychic reader, basically, and has been for decades, would like, yeah, I think that's totally what. And so it's just a really wild ride, and I'm exhausted. And yeah, basically it was like too soon to kind of medically know exactly. But if I'm like relying on my own knowing, that's what happened. So I'm like, wow, what a hell of a time. Mars and Cancer, right? And then also, um, the sun has been in my first house, which is like your body. We just had eclipses in the first house and the sixth, which is like your body. And then the sixth house, I often see a lot of pregnancy stuff happening because it's literally labor. It's like labor is one of the significations of the sixth house. And the last time we had this series of eclipses, which just started in the Virgo Pisces axis, I had to go to the hospital for an ovarian cyst that had ruptured. And so it's just a very weird, it's very weird. It's like, your face. For those listening, Mandee's face is amazing right now. And so, so that's been like the main story of my life for the last 3 weeks, is like trying to figure out what the fuck was going on with my body. Yeah, it's a weird thing. This is the hot personal goss that everyone is here for. Like,
Honestly, though, oh my gosh, uh, better than Love is Blind. I'm telling you.
oh, I started watching the newest season, and I always watch like the first episode, and then afterward I feel kind of sick, and I'm like, I can't do.
You're the reason why I watch that show now. Do you know it?
It's my fault.
I can't get enough of it, man. They're just so, I'm going to curse. Sorry. They're just so fucked up. And it makes me feel slightly better about myself and slightly better about being single. But in any case, I am, all of that aside, I am curious. Are you still experiencing that stabbing feeling in your breast, or has that subsided?
It was like it suddenly disappeared, and then the next day I started bleeding.
Oh my God.
It was like my body was like, okay, we give up. We're not going to try to make this thing happen anymore.
That's so crazy how literal that is with Cancer being, the nurture, the mother of the zodiac, and
Right?
then just the stabbing pain, and it doesn't do well in Mars to begin with.
No, no. Mars does not do well in Cancer. It's a sign of its fall. I know some other folks who've been having various reproductive issues. If you're having like a funny period, like, it's
Mm-hmm.
just, it is the primo weather for that shit. It can also be just change, right? Like severing and being like, okay, like I'm leaving that behind. I'm moving forward. That can also be very Mars thing. So Mars isn't like all bad and scary, but when it's in full, it's pretty angsty, I would say, would be a good word to describe it. Mars and Cancer.
Well, on Monday, I was so irritated at everyone and everything. And I know it's because of a lot of the squaring that was happening and just a lot of friction and around communication as well, too. Yeah.
Mhm.
Ruthless. Everything. It's just brutal.
Ruthless. Yeah, it's brutal. I mean, we're seeing it in the news, the warrior planet Mars in the sign of its fall, right? Like mothers, children, people who are in hospital, like they're supposed to be off limits. In like, in these like rules of war. And it's just terrible.
No, it's really brutal. It's water and fire and just
Mhm.
it's chaotic emotion in a lot of ways too. So even just like paring it down, thinking about it like that. Um, I know a lot of Aries moons who are just like constantly in their feelings about things. Fire moons in general, like anyone with a moon sign and a fire placement, they're 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 very passionate, I find, but also very inexpressive. But it's so funny because you're like, why angry crying at me right now? Like all the time, I can handle this. My Virgo moon's like, I deal with my emotions in private. Like, I'm so sorry. I don't have time for this. Like, good luck to you. It just,
God. For goodness, like I keep myself up replaying the worst moments of my life all night. I don't know why you have to be so public about your feelings, fire moons.
it's literally that though. I'm not going to lie. Like, I just, I can't, I don't have time for your emotions right now because I am barely keeping mine under wraps around everyone else. So there's that.
Oh,
Here we are.
well, earth moons and fire moons, I think, can really benefit from each other's example. But you're right about the moon, right, which is watery in nature. It rules Cancer, right? Being in this fiery, hot, aggressive sign of Aries. What's interesting about this full moon, there are many interesting things about it, but the moon and Mars are in a configuration that we call mutual reception. And basically, that means that the moon is in a sign that Mars rules, and Mars is in a sign that the moon rules. And so they have this ability to see each other, right? So in traditional astrology, we talk a lot about the planets having sight or vision and being able to see each other or not be able to see each other. So the planets can see each other in this configuration, the moon and Mars, because they're in each other's signs and because they're making an aspect to one another by square or 90-degree angle. So what I think this could signify, right, is an opportunity for people to see the harm and to see the pain and to really metabolize it. And I just saw some news that I think they're voting on a bill for the first time to totally block weapons aid to Israel right now. So, and I think
Arms embargo.
yeah, being led by like Bernie Sanders and some other folks. Um, so I think that is an expression, right, of this full moon that's coming up, of like, yeah, the pain isn't over, right? The horrors aren't over, but maybe people are going to start seeing it and caring about it in a way that makes change, right? And Mars really is a planet of change. It is It's, I think, the biggest planet of change, that and the moon, really, because the moon is always changing phase, always changing signs. And Mars severs. It says, enough of this shit. I'm doing something else. I'm moving on. I'm doing something new. And that can be good or bad.
You gotta let things fall apart, destroy,
Yeah.
crumble in order to make space for new things to arrive, right? And that's the thing about, I mean, I, of course, am thinking from a from a yoga background because of my yoga teaching. And I always think about Shiva, the destroyer,
Mhm.
and Bhagavad Gita, and how he's constantly just wrecking shit, like the warrior, right? But letting things just be destroyed is how we are able to make real change. Like it's an initiation in a lot of ways too.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think I know I can be afraid of my own destructive power from time to time. And yeah, I think this is a great full moon to kind of blame our destruction, our destructive power of what needs to be destroyed, right? Whether that's in our personal lives or a situation in our global shared communal lives. What needs to be destroyed? And can we have the courage to destroy it?
Oh, so many questions to be asking ourselves in this full moon.
I
Yeah.
know. I know. And let's not forget Pluto's role in the chart of this full moon. So the full moon will be at 24 degrees of Aries. Pluto is at 29 degrees of Capricorn. And when a planet is at the very end of a sign, we call it an anaretic degree. It's at the very last degree of a sign. And it is said to have gathered all the power and energy of that sign, and it's at its most powerful point. So we have this really powerful Pluto right on the threshold of Aquarius at the end of Capricorn. And Mars is moving into an opposition across the way from Pluto in Cancer. So will be at like 23 degrees. So it's a very tight, what we call a very tight T square between actually a very tight grand cross, because in all of the cardinal signs, right, in Aries and Libra, and in Cancer and Capricorn, which make a big X to each other, we have planets that are going to be between 23 and 29 degrees. The sun and moon at 24 degrees, Mars at 23 degrees, and Pluto at 29 degrees. So what happens here is this big, um, like all the energy, like just like anyone who has a rising sign that is one of the cardinal signs, that is one of the first signs of a season. So Aries, Cancer, Libra, or Capricorn, you might really be feeling this. Or if you have major cardinal sign placements, you might really be feeling this. And I'm also encouraging people to think back to around April 8th, because that was the final um, new moon eclipse, right? Solar eclipse in Aries for the Aries Libra eclipse cycle. And so this is the first moon that we're having that is not an eclipse in Aries. And so, yeah, it would be really interesting to map this moment onto, are you connecting anything in your life from around April 8th to this week, Mandee?
Oh my gosh. I'm a little afraid.
Oh, no.
I'm a little afraid. I was in Portugal for 2 months, volunteering at a retreat center in an agroforest, and it was a time. There were a lot of things going on. Um, the lunar eclipse that happened in Libra 2 weeks prior to that, um,
It was like just after Easter.
it was just after the equinox as well, and
Mhm.
it was. I had been vomiting a bunch, and like
Oh,
a lot
shit.
of purging. I had overeaten after having not eaten. It's a long story.
Mm.
But I was like bedridden and had it and couldn't eat for like a week and a half. And then I started building my strength back up. and I had a weekend alone with me and the dogs. I was feeling really good. This is April 7th, feeling really good. People in the community came back from having been away for about 4 or 5 days. And I go on a walk with the dogs, and I think that I can cross the river,
Mm.
and I got pulled under by the river, and I thought I was going to die. And one of the dogs tried to save me. He literally like jumped in and like started swimming. Oh my God, I love dogs. I know, I love dogs too. And I was probably underwater for like at least 3 minutes, if not 5. And weirdly enough, Andrew Bird's song came on titled Dance of Death. And I saw it after the fact because it had paused on that song. Like I was listening to it. It randomly came up. And I just remember there was one moment when I was like turning a bend because I was being swept under. And I was like, that's not how I die. And I was eventually able to like get to a point where I could stand up and like swim across and I got to the other side. The other dog was stuck on the other side, but she came back to the property and was fine. She knows the land. She's a wild girl. I'm not. That's what I was told. And then the next day I had tremendous diarrhea for the next 5 days and didn't eat for another week and a half. So I had basically not eaten for like 3 weeks, like consistently. And so I'm just like, okay, is the lake going to come and get me? Am I going to drown? Am I going to die? Like, what's going to happen tomorrow? I'm a little worried. I don't know.
Oh my goodness.
But yeah, it was a pretty intense time. The eclipse.
You said that was April 7th?
That was April 7th. Yeah.
Oh my God. Yeah. Well, oh my God, I remember now. That eclipse was so intense. That eclipse was being ruled by Mars and Pisces conjunct Saturn. So like a near-death experience in water really is really literal. Oh my God. Oh, and also Mercury was retrograde. And what's so interesting is like when a planet is retrograde, it appears to be moving backward in the sky. And let's see, how do I describe this in a way that will make sense? So we have 2 kinds of motion, right? When we have diurnal motion, right? Or primary motion. And that's when the planets, they rise in the east and they set in the west every day, right? This is the primary motion. It's like what you can depend on. If the sun didn't rise in the east and set in the west, it'd be over, right? Like there's something would be going on. But then we have secondary motion, which is the zodiacal motion, which actually goes against the grain of that motion, which is really cool when you like look at the chart, when you animate the chart. Things are rising from east to west, but moving very slowly in the opposite direction through the zodiac. But when planets are retrograde, right, it's as if they get swept up in that primary motion. And so it's like that image of you being swept up in the river current, right? And just having to be like, I mean, it's very symbolic.
Yeah, I really had to surrender to it in the moment because I kept trying to come up for air and I could not. I mean, I couldn't fight the current. It was April. It was strong. I thought it was a thin enough passage to be able to cross it and it would be fine. And I was just putting my toes in to see if I could do it. And I was holding onto a branch. And the minute my leg hit the water, I was down. Like I went down. And it's just, yeah. I was like, I have to do everything differently now. Everything. And then funny enough, a couple of days after that, I went to the ocean and was just like, I felt so much better going to the ocean and being like, all right, I know what I need to do and I need to go back home. I need to go back home to Chicago and sort my life out. And I've been here trying to figure it out. And funny enough, Aries is in my 4th house of family and foundations and home. So it's
Wow.
very wild how the last 6 months have unfolded and just kind of figuring out where do I want to be and what kind of life do I want for myself. And, you were talking about Aries being more of independent and the risk taker in a lot of ways. And that is definitely how my living situation has been for a long time, thinking about family unconventionally. And so as I sit with the two realities of how do I want to interact with my blood family and also what kind of life do I want to carve out for myself as I'm living alone and thinking more now to like what I want for myself as I get older and will probably be alone. I'm just thinking, I don't know. I really like the life that I'm carving out, but also it comes with growing pains too, right? So I needed to have that near death
Mm.
experience to kind of reorient me.
Wow.
I don't know.
I mean, I think that just thinking about so many different stories in my own life and in others' lives from that Aries eclipse back in April, it did have this quality, right? And I think this is how astrology works on this symbolic level. It had this quality of like stepping into something and having no idea that it was going to completely knock you on your ass, right? That happened in like
Literally.
three different areas of my life under that eclipse. And I know for sure that it has happened for other people in that way. And it's like now we're 6 months later, right? And just still dealing with like all of the questions that that moment has raised. And I think a lot of people are trying to kind of like desperately put some of them to bed. I know that I am like just being like, can we just arrive, right, at some sort of conclusion? But we're in this astrology right now where none of the planets are at home, right? They're like so many of them are so far away from home. And it has this scattered quality of like, everything's everywhere. How do I wrestle this? How do I like, and then even a bigger philosophical question is like, how do I build resilience around the discomfort of like not everything being in the place that I want it to be in right now?
Right. And making home within the self and wherever you're at,
Mm,
cultivating a sense of home or a sense of belonging, however you can, having your rituals and your routines or yeah, I mean, the thing that grounded me when I was in when I was at that retreat center was being able to have my walks with the dogs for like 2 hours a day after my shift of volunteering and just walking around with them until sunset. It was the only thing that gave me a sense of grounding and peace in a place where I just was like, where do I go next? I've been living transiently, like living in a very transient way for 2 years now. What do I want to do? And the thing that made sense after all of that was, oh, I have to go back home. I have to reset my nervous system. I have to find some grounding and some peace and ease so that I can build the kind of life that I want for myself, even if I don't quite know what that is.
mm,
And so a lot of questions, like you were saying, still up in the air, but definitely I'm much more settled now than I was 6 months ago. And I think even if you're still asking those questions, we're all we're all finding the ground beneath our feet in some way or another, even if we, are seeing all of the horrors that are happening, all of the natural disasters that are happening, all of the, celebrity shenanigans that are happening. There's always something going on, but if we can just anchor ourselves in the ground and feel ourselves, we know that it's going to be, I mean, I don't know if it's going to be okay, but it's going to, everything's coming to a resolution. Things will resolve.
yeah. Yeah, we have a big winter ahead of us, I think. And on a personal level, we're asking all these questions about how do I want my life to be and to look like. Also on a global level, right? I think so many people are like, I don't want to live like this. I don't want to, you know, when I was thinking I might be pregnant, I was like, God, this is on one level really good news for me. On another level, like what a scary world to bring a child into. I mean, it's terrifying, right? Like we're at a tipping point with climate change, and it is becoming very loud and very obvious. And so, yeah, I think we're all asking, right? What is the world we want to live in, and what action do we need to take to make it possible? Because it's dire, and we have to act. And that's Aries, right? Like we gotta do it. We have to act. So um yeah, really interesting full moon that we have coming.
Yeah, big catalyst for change. And I think every time I go to the water or I'm walking around in nature, hiking, whatever it is, I keep thinking, specifically lately in the last, I don't know, 6 months, maybe year, I just keep asking myself, am I going to be able to see the sun like this in a decade or two? Am I going to be able, or is it going to be okay for us to be outside? Is it going to be
Yeah.
okay for us to commune with nature in this way? I keep thinking, I mean, I don't know that I'm never going to have kids, but what kind of planet are we leaving for the younger generations? Will they be able to do the same things that we were able to do when we were growing up? And the fact that I can't confidently say yes to any of those things is it's very, very dire, very scary. Um, but that's the kind of fear that we need in order to instigate real change, right? The catalyst for change, which is what Aries is.
Yeah, gosh, I hope so. I This was so amazing. Last week I learned that the aurora borealis was visible. I was eating dinner and learned that it was visible here in San Jose. And so my partner and I we drove just north of town, and up on a ridge, and you could just barely see it. It was like this glowing pink. But what was really cool is if you took a long exposure photo of the sky, then you could really see it in the image, which was so cool. So took some really cool pictures. Um, and yeah, that thought crossed my mind like, gosh, I feel so lucky to live somewhere where the night sky is so visible. And more, the sky is becoming invisible for people because of light pollution and just pollution. And then also, um, like I've learned that people are starting to create billboards in the night sky with drones, and I'm like, wow, like this is our inheritance, right? And when I talk as a faith leader about the sky and our inheritance, I'm like, this is our right. This is our inheritance to be able to look up at the sky and feel wonder and awe and safety, right? To feel like held, and like not like the sun is going to kill us, but to engender life and to warm us and to make us feel good. So yeah, the it's kind of like the earth and the sky right now, big questions. And I think that those are important questions for people who love astrology to be thinking about too, like ethical questions. What are our rights to the sky? I think we have them.
Yes, tending to the sky. And I mean, so often I feel like the sky is for dreamers too, you know? When you're
Mm,
walking around, when you're looking at the sky and when you're walking or when you're staring at some kind of indirect space, as it were, it just does so much for the nervous system. It does so much for the body. It does so much for your mental health to know that you're just a tiny speck in this vastness.
mhm,
And if we lose that, then we also lose, I feel like, a sense of who we are and how we function in this world
mhm.
outside of our laptops and devices. And so
Totally.
then we just, again, get like further and further away from the natural world and further away from ourselves, which then allows us to disconnect from all the other things that are going on outside of us, right? We need the sky. We need the sun. We need all of these things to remind us that we are all connected because we look up at the same sky, from wherever part of the world that we're at. And just like mm, most of the population has experienced a global pandemic, we all went through that together in very different ways, but we all endured that, right? And it's these experiences that allow us to really tap into our humanity and who we are as people. And so we lose those ties, those connections, then we lose a sense of self in a big way.
Mm, yes. Again, this theme of severance and how our rugged individualism or pursuit of that has led to so much severance, and we can extend that even to our sky, which is such a bummer. So I know, but the aurora was beautiful, I will
You
say,
some
and
great pictures. I
it
was
gave
so
me a lot
jealous.
of hope. It gave me a lot of hope. It was my first time ever seeing it, um, and I also saw 2 shooting stars while we were looking at it. It was so magical.
Lovely, isn't it?
It was really magical. Yeah,
Gosh.
yeah. Well, I wanna transition us into looking at the scripture passage for this week, which I think maybe we'll have some interesting things to think and say about that. But first, I wanted to just talk about a couple of things that are coming up in the Bad Pastor universe. So we are doing a series on exorcism on October 28th, 29th, 30th, and November 4th. It's a 4-part webinar series. I'm hosting this with my really good friends, Jonah Emerson Bell and Sarah Knoll. Jonah is a clinical intern. He's about to graduate from his counseling program at Southwestern College here in San Jose. And he's going to talk about heart's work and demons and spirit possession and addiction and all of these things through a psychological realm, and Jonah's like, he's a wild Sagittarius. So like, he's just got um, really great energy. And yeah, he's just like a big dirty wizard. He's wonderful. And I have his permission to call him that. I asked. And Sarah is a chaplaincy educator, which you have to train so long and so hard to do. It's bananas. And so she teaches people how to be chaplains and how to sit with people in the hardest moments of their lives. And so she has just an incredible knowledge of emotional and spiritual care, and is also a former Episcopal priest. So she is really, really well versed in Christianity, all things Christianity. And so we are going to teach on the history of exorcism together. Sarah and I are going to teach about Walter Wink and William Stringfellow, who were these amazing progressive theologians um, who wrote about the powers and principalities and like angelic and demonic like warfare, and how do we think about these things in a progressive contemporary lens, right? How do we look at evil and cruelty and systemic injustice in the world and think about it on a spiritual level? I think it's going to be really fun and compelling to talk about these things. And then our 4th session, which is the night before the US election, which is kind of funny. It just worked out that was when we were going to do this. We're going to knit all of these things together into an astrological application and say, how do we look at particularly Saturn and Mars in the chart, which are said to be like the malefic planets, right? Or the kind of misfortune bringers, and look at them both in the transiting chart, in the current sky, and in our own personal charts as demons, right? That need to be seen, acknowledged, and called into higher service. And so I just think it's going to be really fun and cool. I'm offering this on a sliding scale, and everything will be recorded. So if you can't come for the live conversations, you can watch them. They'll be available for a month afterward. And I think the live conversations are going to be really the group of people that's already enrolled is really fun. And I think we're going to have a great time. The second announcement that I have is that this weekend, I'm going to be launching the pre-sale for There Will Be Signs, which is our annual Advent astrology devotional that Sarah and I will now have been doing for 4 years, which is wild to me. And so I'm going to offer that at an early bird special. So please go ahead and sign up for that. The devotional happens every day of Advent. Sarah and I will write a reflection or a devotion on the scripture of the day and the current astrology of the day. And then we also host weekly candle lighting sessions. So if you want to come for the candle lighting liturgy, we do host them on Zoom. And it's really sweet because there's like 30 people or even more, right, from all over the country who are lighting candles together and saying holy words together and praying together. And it's just a really grounding. I love it. It's such a sweet time of year. And I just love Advent. So those are my updates.
Yeah. Do all the things.
Doing all the things.
Doing all the things. That's the name of the game this spooky season.
Doing all the things all the time.
Yeah. So great that you have a Sagittarius talking about exorcism too.
Yeah. Oh yeah. I mean, gosh, what are our sun signs? Cancer, Leo, and Sagittarius. So yeah, I think that works.
Yeah. I love it.
All right. So speaking of scripture, I wanted to read the scripture for Sunday of next week, which is the 20th? Is that right?
Yep.
So for the week of the 20th, so this is the weekly lectionary. So if you went to a mainline Protestant church, you would in all likelihood hear this scripture being read and a sermon delivered on it. Maybe you're going to deliver a sermon on it and you're listening right now. I hope so. I know I have a lot of secret priests that follow me. It's very fun. A lot of bad pastors and naughty priests.
I love it.
So the reading for Sunday, the gospel reading is from Mark chapter 10, verses 35 through 45. And it goes like this. James and John, the sons of Zebedee, came forward to him and said to him, "Teacher, we want you to do for us whatever we ask of you." He said to them, they're talking to Jesus, by the way. He said to them, "What is it you want me to do for you?" And they said to him, "Appoint us to sit, one at your right hand and one at your left in your glory." But Jesus said to them, "You do not know what you are asking. Are you able to drink the cup that I drink or be baptized with the baptism that I am baptized with?" They replied, "We are able." Then Jesus said to them, "The cup I drink, you will drink, and with the baptism with which I am baptized, you will be baptized. But to sit at my right hand or at my left is not mine to appoint, but it is for those for whom it has been prepared." When the 10 heard this, the other apostles, they began to be angry with James and John. So Jesus called them and said to them, "You know that among the Gentiles, those whom they recognize as their rulers lord it over them, and their great ones are tyrants over them. But it is not so among you. Instead, whoever wishes to become great among you must be your servant. And whoever wishes to be first among you must be slave of all. For the Son of Man came not to be served, but to serve, and to give his life a ransom for many." And it's an intense one. It's very cryptic, I think. It's more cryptic, but I spent some time with this last night and have some thoughts. But is it clear to you kind of what's going on in this passage, Mandee?
I was reading it last night and I was like, this is interesting because my sense of it is they're asking to be kind of like teacher's pet. Like, let me, hey Jesus, let me, I'm not going to curse. I'm going to try not to curse.
You
Let
can
me be
curse,
your,
it's fine.
Let me
Yes.
be okay. Well, let me be your bitch. But let me be the one who does your bidding, because then that puts me in a place of power.
Mm,
And Jesus seems to be saying, actually, it's the opposite of what you need to be doing. You need to surrender the want of power, because the people who actually want to be here in service of each other, that we're in service of community, those are the people that are leading together. It seems more of, I mean, Jesus was a radical. He was all
mhm.
about it. So I'm getting the sense that it's like this idea of power and who's on top. It feels a comment on politics in a lot of ways, actually, to me.
Yeah. Yeah. The part where he says, that among the Gentiles, those whom they recognize as their rulers lord it over them, and their great ones are tyrants over them. Mhm. Yeah, it absolutely is political. And it's absolutely a pericope, which means like a short text about power, I think. And Jesus is kind of talking about power with the disciples. And like the kind of power that you want is not the kind of power that I'm here to give you.
Yeah, yeah. Literally, that's it. And the fact that this is the kind of power that you want makes me think that maybe we're not on the same page. Maybe we're not in such alignment. And so we
Mm,
need to have a discussion about that. Or,
yeah, a come to
but
Jesus, if you will.
yeah, it's literally that. Oh my God. Uh,
Yeah. I mean, when he's asking, you know, are you able to drink the cup that I drink or be baptized with the baptism that I'm baptized with? It's very funny how many times he uses the word baptism here. Um, but he's basically saying like, um, the cup that I'm drinking here is the dangerous one, right? And there's Jesus talks a lot about the dangerous element of what he's doing. And I think that that's important when we look at the last line of this cutting of scripture. For the Son of Man came not to be served, but to serve and give his life a ransom for many. And I think that idea of ransom, right, it gets twisted into what we call substitutionary atonement theology, which is like God made Jesus, or God came down to earth as Jesus, and Jesus had to die because we're such sinners, and Jesus had to die in order to like redeem us. And that violent like retribution was the only way that sin could be overcome. And I mean, this is a very complicated sort of the theological discussion to get into, which we don't have a ton of time for. Um, but it's complicated language, and I think it's kind of triggering language for a lot of people who grew up with substitutionary atonement theology, that like Jesus had to die this awful, gruesome death in order to save us. And I don't know that that's what he's saying. I think he's saying, I came here to love radically. And often the consequence for loving radically in this world that we live in is awful, gruesome death.
Truly.
And if you want to, if you want real power, if you want the power that I have to give you, you've got to be down with the idea that loving radically is dangerous. I don't know. That's my thought on the scripture.
Well, I love that. I'm also like, who are these dudes that are like, teacher, we want you to do for us whatever we ask of you? Like, ballsy, like that, balls, Like, yeah. James and John, I'm like, who raised you?
Zebedee.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Just wild. Yeah. I mean, I dare think too, I get a lot of this aspect of community too. Like what you were saying about loving radically comes with a price. And that so often in this world of capitalism and individualism, which obviously they were living in a different time, but it's applicable to nowadays. People are thinking about themselves and what it means to be in a position of power. But Jesus is really asking us, what does it mean to be thinking of the collective and taking care of one another? Because that's a different mission statement. And you have to rewire your entire personal mission statement in order to hang, pretty much.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And I think this really tracks on again to this full moon in Aries, Libra and Aries being signs about relationship, agency, and power. And we have a big lunation happening here. I actually think it's a super moon too.
Oh my gosh. Of course it is.
That's happening. And so a really big lunation just lighting up these questions and themes of relationship agency and power. And so it's funny how the weekly reading often maps on so well to like whatever. It's this great form of divination, right? The whatever's happening in the current sky, I think is super cool. And I'm just looking up right now, and there's an Audre Lorde. I mean, she wrote this amazing essay called I think it's, what is it? Uses of the erotic. The erotic is power. Audre Lorde, looking at her chart, she was an Aquarian. She had Libra rising with Jupiter and Libra ruling the third house. I actually did some research on her for an episode of the astrology podcast, and that is forthcoming. And she had Uranus in Aries in the seventh house, and Uranus is this planet of revolution, right? So she had a lot going on in this area of Libra and Aries, and she wrote an essay that I actually read for the first time in seminary called The Uses of the Erotic. The Erotic is Power. This was written in 1984. And the essay opens, there are many kinds of power, used and unused, acknowledged or otherwise. The erotic is a resource within each of us that lies in a deeply female and spiritual plane, firmly rooted in the power of our unexpressed or unrecognized feeling. For women, this has meant a suppression of the erotic as a considered source of power and information within our lives. We've been taught to suspect this resource, vilified, abused, and devalued within Western society. It's an incredible essay, but she wrote so much on power and also on Eros. And, if we're thinking about Libra as being this sign that is ruled by Venus, we're in Libra season right now. It's like deeply relational, and relationships are all about power, right? Like that's the only way that power is exerted is in relationship, right? So it's really like a prime time, a prime lunation to be thinking about Audre Lorde and what she had to say about power and Eros. And yeah, go read that essay if you have some time. I think it's a really good one. Amazing to think about that scripture with you and to make connections with the full moon and Audre Lorde. I have a couple other important transits that are coming up this week. So actually right after that full moon in Aries, like I think within a couple of hours, Venus is going to move into Sagittarius. Yeah. Yeah, cue the fireworks. My goodness. I'm just really excited about that because I'm ready for Venus to be in a sign where she isn't in exile anymore. That'll be so good.
Oh yeah, please give me that. And Sagittarius is fun.
It's fun. It's a Jupiter ruled sign. Come on.
Expansive love. We love to see it.
We love to see it. So what do you have anything on your wish list for Venus and Sagittarius for this transit?
As always, to not die.
Oh my God. Mandee, you're not going to die.
I mean, I don't know.
Oh,
Capricorn rising, constantly thinking about death.
Not in the next week, anyhow.
I hope not. Oh my God. So many things have to happen for this. Oh my goodness.
Well, Venus is going to be in Sagittarius until November 11th. Um,
Yeah.
exactly. Yeah, they can see each other, which hasn't been true with Venus and Scorpio. Um, and, of course, this is a major signature of the upcoming election. Yikes. Happening on November 5th. Um, and we'll also have Mercury in Sagittarius by that time, but we'll talk about that next week.
Think I, I it's tricky. So Sagittarius is in my 12th house, and then I recently found out it might be my Lilith, my Black Moon Lilith, which still trying to understand that whole bag, to be honest. But
I don't work with her, so but let me know what you find out when you do. I know that
yeah.
Chani is unrolling some big Black Moon Lilith thing right now because I've gotten 5 emails about it.
Yeah, I'm trying to wrap my head around it. Everyone's kind of spiraling a bit over it, it seems like, but that's a whole other conversation. Yeah, it's because it's the 12th sign in my chart. It's like, it's more of the subtleties of my life, like secrets, the uncovered, hidden aspects. And so when I'm thinking about Venus and me relating to other people and also relating to myself in that way, I really am I think my whole feeling is I just want to like get through this next chunk of time unscathed. Like that's really what I mean by death, And I've been really, I don't know, the other day, the other thing that happened, I guess it's like a week and a half ago. Oh, almost 2 weeks ago. I got doored when I was biking.
Oh, ouch.
Yeah. And then my bike got stolen like a couple of days after that.
Oh my God, Mandee.
Yeah, it's wild.
Wow, it's like the 12th house transits are here without even being here yet.
Literally, it's that. I got doored because I was biking late at night because I was like trying to hang out with a boy.
No.
It was like 20. I had no business. I also need to stop meeting strangers in weird places, right? So, and I'm just like, and I didn't even want to be sorry to this kid, but like, I'm like, literally, I am too old for you. Like, I feel like, give me my cane and my lazy boy and put me to pasture.
Oh my God. I do feel like that's such an expression of Jupiter. So Jupiter is in your 6th, right now, because Jupiter is in Gemini and it rolls your 12th and it stationed retrograde last week. So I'm sort of like, that feels maybe like that's the transit that was mapping onto like, it was literally slowing down in the sky when that happened. And you were like, and then it has to do with 6th house has to do with like physical injury. And then the 12th house has to do with like things getting stolen and shit like that. And like, or not being seen, right? Like someone didn't see you and they opened your door. So I'm sorry that happened. Are you okay now?
I'm okay. Yeah. I mean, the worst part is that this kid was talking at me for hours and I should have stopped it. And I was like, I really need to pee. And I stopped to get cookies because I was like, I need to eat my feelings. Someone just talked at me for 3 hours. I can't deal, even though I shouldn't be eating that. But anyway.
Wait, did he talk at you or did you get late?
No, of course. What? Didn't get laid. And I'm
25-year-old man. What are you doing?
I literally had my heart broken this summer. Like I can't handle it anymore. And like, I just like can't do it. So all of that to say that like, I went to get cookies. I got back on my bike and that's when it happened. And I fell. And the worst part was that I pissed myself and I was so embarrassed. I was so pissed off. Well, I couldn't literally just walk, right, with my fucking cookies. Anyway, the guy was like, oh my God, I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. And I screamed, right? And he still didn't hear me in time. But like I fall and then and I'm just like, he's like, do you want me to take you to the hospital? And I'm like, no, I have to get out of here. And I literally went to go block my bike up. And I know that I'm pretty sure that I put it in front of the bookstore that's right next to my house. And I do remember saying, fuck it, I don't even care if it gets stolen. Even though I'm pretty sure I locked it, but I was getting frustrated with the lock because I was embarrassed. I was sobbing, like walking down the street. Anyway, I'm like, did I actually even lock it? Was it unlocked? And that's why somebody was able to just take it? And I was pretty sure that I saw it the next day and thought it was fine. I don't normally leave it downstairs, but I just was too exasperated to bring it back upstairs. And then by the time I went to go use it a couple of days later, it was gone. And I'm saying all of this because I was like, I just need to stop putting myself in bad situations because it's been like this for a long time. And you know, the other day I was walking like a couple of days ago. Oh no, I was on my new bike. I was biking from the
You'd gone to the bathroom.
I'd gone to the bathroom and I was biking around from a workshop. And I was just like, man, it's actually really nice to be single. I'm happy being alone right now in this very moment. And so I think, you know, I don't know, maybe that's what the Venus and Sagittarius moment is doing for me.
Yes, a little bit of time in like fun isolation.
Yeah. Please isolate me. Put me away where I can't break myself or anything around me.
I could
But for
become
you,
the girl in the bubble.
the girl in the bubble. I am bubble girl. Yeah, that's fully it. I should be at least. I'm a danger to myself. But in any case, for you, it's transiting your second house. Yeah,
My third.
your third. Your third.
Yeah. I'm just thinking about Halloween. What I did yesterday. I had a great day yesterday and like self-soothing after realizing that this maybe pregnancy I had was gone. I ate a giant gluten-free pizza. I drank so much coffee because I had been avoiding it, right? And so I was like so hyped on coffee. And then last night came home and just like smoked.
Yeah.
And then I had decided that I've decided that I'm going to be Princess Peach for Halloween, and my partner's going to.
He's gonna be Mario.
He's going to be Mario. He's this like little Jewish guy. And he's like, I just going to be Jewish Mario.
Yeah.
But it really works. He's got like, like thick black hair. So it works. But I was, so I was looking. I hate pre-made costumes. Like I have an allergic reaction to pre-made costumes. It has to be assembled. But this is my Cancerian stuff coming through, right? Like it's gotta be homemade. Like I can't. And then the Libra being like, I'm not wearing that like fashion where the like hems aren't even finished, like in polyester. Are you kidding me right now? So yeah, and so I spent like a lot of time just figuring out how I was going to dress up as Princess Peach. And I was like, do I want to do like a classic Princess Peach or do I want to do like a twist on Princess Peach? Yeah, I think like just having some fun in the neighborhood, right? It feels like very Venus and Sagittarius. And yeah, maybe, I mean, I'm going to be doing a lot of like research and writing projects over the next month. And that feels very third house, like communications, writing, that sort of thing. And so I'm hoping that Venus will bring a little like joy and connection and pleasure to that area of my life as well. So
You should convince AJ to be Luigi. Because he's got the height for it.
I know.
Then
He
you
said he
can
wanted to
win.
be Bowser.
Oh my God, of course.
But you know what's also so funny, speaking of third house stuff, is that AJ joined a basketball league, an adult basketball league. And so this is my husband for everyone who's like, who's AJ? So AJ and I were married and now we're not, but we're still like best friends and we've been together for 12 years and we live together and it's like amazing. Our relationship's so fun. But yeah, he joined a basketball league and who is on the basketball team, on his team, but my really hot tattoo artist that I've had a crush on for years, but he's the best, like, oh, and he's done like all my work. And so yeah, so he's on the team. And then also my former manager is on the team who who was my manager when I worked at a restaurant here. And I'm like, this is such a third house manifestation for me, right? And I'm in a third house year by annual perfection. So we'll have to talk about that another time. But um so yeah, like just neighborhood stuff is like really coming online for me right now. And so yeah, it's just like I'm gonna go to the basketball games, I think, and cheer AJ on and embarrass him, So Venus, like my band, one of my best friends, like go to his sports games with like my tattoo artist and former manager. It's just so funny. And AJ was like, do not, I was like, I'm gonna make a sign. I was like, he was like, do not make any signs. And I was
Make
like,
all of the signs.
I'm totally gonna make a sign.
You're gonna be like that sign guy. Oh yeah.
Exactly. So yeah, I just hope there's like a little levity and fun with Venus and Sag. Although, oh my God, who knows what's gonna happen with this election in the US and I mean just everything else that's going on. Do you have Halloween plans? Are you gonna dress up as anything?
You know,
And then I know we have to end this conversation. It go on forever. I know. It's hard. It's hard. But tell the people, they want to know, Mandee.
some people want to know. I want to know, honestly.
Well, that I had this thought that we were having a very like Wayne and Garth moment today.
I'm literally wearing my. Can you see it?
Oh, wait, is it a kiss patch?
Yeah, it is. It is. And I did a play about a band breaking up, and I was playing a one of the lead guitarists, like the lead guitarist. And the playwright actually gave me his electric guitar and this jacket, and I just feel so much cooler than I actually am because of it. But anyway,
You're so cool.
I wish. I mean, yes, I'm cool.
I mean, maybe don't leave with the PP on your bike story, but like, you're so cool. Just let me just.
The way that I stopped for 2 blocks with a wet stain on my shorts, and I was just like, even if my bones are all broken, I am not going to the hospital with you because I have literally pissed myself. And the last thing I want to do is be seen in public. That is totally my Leo. And also, like,
embarrassment is so relatable.
It's too much. No broken bones could get me anywhere near a hospital. Let me change my pants, and then maybe the next day, and I will do it on my own. It was, yeah. I mean,
oh my God.
It's insane. I'm doing an excerpt of my one-woman show on Monday, and it's the only thing that I've been able to think about. So I have not thought about it, whether I'm dressing up for Halloween or not. I really want to do a bonfire with my friends, but I don't know if we're all going to be in the same place to be able to do it. So that's the thing I'm trying to coordinate. But where was I last year? Last year, I was working. So did I?
That's how it goes.
Yeah, I don't think I dressed up. I think I just wore an orange sweater, and I was like, "This is it. This is Halloween." But I love dressing up, and it's so much fun. And Princess Peach is an awesome costume, so I'm really excited for you.
I'm so excited. The last few years, I've really been leaning into the like Halloween is permission to dress like a complete and total slut. And
Yes.
I just like, I'm leaning into it. So whatever she's going to be a really slutty Princess Peach, whether she's a sporty slutty Princess Peach or a classic slutty Princess Peach.
I say thotty Princess Peach.
Oh.
Let's bring back thotty, man. Come on.
There's our decades old reference. We needed that and Wayne and Garth. That was the other one for today, but it's been pretty good. All right. Well, we have covered bleeding and miscarriage and diarrhea and vomiting and pee. And now I need to go change my tampon. So I'm gonna call it.
Great.
But we will, God willing, and the creek don't rise. meet back here next week and keep this going because I'm having the time of my life.
Same. Bye.
Bye.